Edinburgh is one of those cities that looks as if it was designed for history, but it was really designed by conflict, geography, and survival. Long before it became a capital, long before it became a festival city, there was a rock. Castle Rock, the volcanic crag that still dominates the skyline, was already a defensible stronghold in the Iron Age. Early medieval tradition remembered it as Din Eidyn, a hill fort so important that it entered heroic poetry. That matters because Edinburgh did not begin as a polite urban center. It began as a fortress watching the surrounding land, a place where height meant safety and control. The city's story starts with the simple fact that whoever held that rock held power. From there, Edinburgh grew into something much larger. In the 12th century, King David I helped turn it into a royal burgh, while also founding Holyrood Abbey in 1128. Around the same period, St. Margaret's Chapel was built inside the castle, and it still survives as the oldest building in Edinburgh Castle today. A settlement stretched down from the fortress ridge, forming the spine that would become the Royal Mile, while the Canongate developed around Holyrood. By the 15th century, Edinburgh had become the capital of Scotland, and that status transformed it from a military site into the political heart of a kingdom. The city's shape still tells that story. Castle at one end, palace at the other, and in between, the dense, tense world of religion, trade, government, and daily struggle. What makes medieval Edinburgh so compelling is that it was impressive and uncomfortable at the same time. The old town was dramatic, but it was also crowded, vertical, and defensive. People built upward because they were hemmed in by walls and terrain. Power, fear, worship, and commerce were packed tightly together. This was not a city that sprawled, it clung to its ridge, and that gives Edinburgh a special kind of historical personality. It feels less like a place that gradually drifted into importance, and more like a place that was forced into significance by its strategic position, then hardened by centuries of political pressure. Before it ever became beautiful in the modern tourist sense, it was already formidable, and that early toughness never really disappeared.
If the first phase of Edinburgh's history is about emergence, the next is about turbulence. The 16th century brought war, walls, religion, and royal drama. After the Scottish defeat at Flodden in 1513, the city built new defensive walls, a sign of how vulnerable even the capital could feel. Then came the Reformation. In 1559, John Knox became minister of St Giles, and the great church was stripped of its Catholic decoration as Edinburgh became one of the key stages on which Scotland's religious future was contested. At almost the same moment, the castle and palace were bound up with the story of Mary, Queen of Scots. In 1566, she gave birth to James VI in Edinburgh Castle. When he later inherited the English throne in 1603, the crowns were united, and the royal court moved south to London. Edinburgh remained important, but something fundamental had shifted. It was still the nation's capital, yet no longer the full-time home of its monarch. That sense of loss deepened in 1707. The Acts of Union ended the old Parliament of Scotland, and Edinburgh became in effect a capital without its own parliament. It remained a centre of law, administration, learning, and elite society, but it had lost a core piece of political life. At the same time, the old town had become intensely overcrowded, so Edinburgh answered decline with reinvention. In 1767, the town council approved the new town plan, and James Craig laid out a vision of order, symmetry, broad streets, and elegant squares. The contrast with the medieval old town could not have been sharper. One side of Edinburgh looked like a fortress-age city compressed by danger, the other looked like reason made stone. And that is why Edinburgh became one of the great cities of the Enlightenment. The Scottish Enlightenment flourished in the second half of the 18th century, and Edinburgh became known as a hotbed of genius. This was the city of David Hume, Adam Smith, printers, lawyers, surgeons, professors, and publishers. Even Encyclopaedia Britannica began here in 1768. So Edinburgh's history is not just castles, sieges, and monarchs. It is also argument, reason, and urban ambition. The city did not escape its older identity, it layered a new one on top of it. Medieval ridge and Georgian grid, crown and courtroom, kirk and coffee house, all of it coexisted. That combination is what made Edinburgh more than a capital. It made it a symbol of Scotland thinking about itself.
What happened next is one reason Edinburgh still feels unusually alive as a historical city. Many old capitals were rebuilt so aggressively that their past became fragmented. Edinburgh kept its contrasts visible. The medieval Old Town and the neoclassical New Town still stand side by side, and that dramatic juxtaposition is exactly why UNESCO recognized the city as a World Heritage Site in 1995. This is not simply a collection of old buildings, it is a physical argument between two eras of urban life, one shaped by defence, religion and monarchy, the other by commerce, planning and Enlightenment confidence. You can read the city almost as a timeline in stone. But Edinburgh did not become a heritage object. In the 20th century, it reinvented itself again, this time through culture. The Edinburgh International Festival was founded in 1947 with the aim of bringing people together through art after the devastation of World War II. That same year, 8 uninvited theatre groups arrived and performed anyway, helping create what became the Edinburgh Festival Fringe. That matters because it tells you something essential about the city. Edinburgh has always balanced establishment and disruption. It can be ceremonial and rebellious in the same breath. A city of court ritual and royal residence became, in August, a city of risk, experiment, satire and performance. The old capital found a new global role without giving up its past. Then came another historic turn. In 1999, after almost 3 centuries, a Scottish Parliament was re-established in Edinburgh and officially opened with full lawmaking powers. So in a modern sense, the city regained a political role that had been absent since Union. Put all of that together, and the history of Edinburgh becomes more than a local story. It is the story of a fortress becoming a royal burgh, a capital becoming an intellectual powerhouse, a city surviving political loss and then reasserting itself through culture, heritage and devolved government. That is why Edinburgh still matters. Its skyline is famous, but the real fascination lies deeper. Few cities show so clearly how power, memory, architecture and identity can accumulate in the same place. Edinburgh does not just preserve Scottish history, it